United Lutheran Seminary presents the Seminary Explores podcast, conversations on faith, art, people, politics, theology, life, and more, with voices from around the corner and around the globe. Welcome to the Seminary Explores. I'm Katie Giebenhein. My guest is Jackie Fuller, executive producer and host of Interfaith Connections, a 30-minute television program that focuses on people who are involved in the interfaith movement in the Washington, D.C. area. She is also president of Religion Communicators Council. Founded in 1929, the Religion Communicators Council is an association of communication professionals who work for and with a diverse group of faith-based organizations. RCC members recognize and cultivate excellence in the communication of faith and values in the public arena and encourage understanding among religious and faith groups. Jackie, welcome to the Seminary Explores.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
So your program's tagline is building bridges and closing gaps.
Yes, I came up with that during my journey interacting with people from various faith traditions, and what I learned along the way is that people had a lack of education about traditions outside their own experiences. So when I came up with this concept of interfaith connections, I said I would like to use this as a platform for religious literacy, but from a perspective of presenting guests on a program in a way where two things happen. Number one, you will learn who this person is, how did this person uses their religion and spirituality to connect with the work they're doing in the world, just giving their own personal perspective of how their faith is affecting and contributing to the work that they're doing. And number two, structure the questions in a way where people can listen or watch and find their own personal connections or how they can relate to the person speaking. So typically my questions, I start in the beginning asking people to introduce who they are and how they got involved in it. And then towards the end, I will ask them to tell a fun fact about yourself. Mm-hmm. And what's ironic is when you get to that point in the interview where they do the fun facts, and then I get feedback from people about each episode, there's always a connection that someone said they could relate to that person based on what that person said during the interview and how they made that connection. So if a person likes a certain type of music or a particular sport, I'll get feedback saying, hey, I didn't think this person from this faith tradition would be into this type of activity. So I do it from two perspectives. One, to show a personal perspective of how a person practices their faith. And number two, remind people that we are not like totally different on separate islands. There's always ways that we're interconnected in some capacity. So that's why I use the terminology building the bridges and closing the gaps, because what happens is the more you start to learn about other people and other faiths, you make those connections, you get to know people, those gaps are closing, such as fear or anger, because people start to understand that your story can also be this other individual's story. So that's one of the reasons why I did that, because I noticed I was always concerned in conversation with people what they would say about people from different traditions, and I'm like, no, that's not exactly accurate. Most people, you'd be surprised, from the various traditions live like a regular, normal life. Mm-hmm. And I felt the show was a platform that can do that, to kind of close those kind of like gaps or misunderstandings. Mm-hmm. That's really where the gaps come from. Building bridges, on the other hand, is a terminology that's used a lot in the world, particularly when you're doing peace building work, because usually people say the best way to get different communities to get along with each other or work with each other, you have to kind of build those bridges to meet people, get to know people, understand people. So typically that's where that perspective came from. Yeah.
What's an example of, you've certainly had so many interesting and varied interviews, but could you just name an example of someone that you've spoken with recently?
Mm-hmm. The one person that comes to mind is Imam Talib Sharif. Mm-hmm. He is the imam at a mosque in Washington, D.C. that's affectionately known as the Nation's Mosque. Mm-hmm. And at his location, or with his faith community, it was really interesting. I was inspired to do his interview, and I always say to my colleagues from the Islamic community, I say, I have to always apologize. I said, I know it's taken me 7 years to finally interview an imam. I had rabbis and pastors on my show, but I never had an imam. So I've been doing this for 7 years, interviewed my first imam this year. And that was an experience interviewing him. And that
was quite in depth, wasn't it? Didn't you do multiple parts?
3-part episode. Had to do it in 3 different parts. And I was inspired to do the interview typically in the way that I do it. They have launched a campaign right now to have renovations done at their mosque. The mosque has been around, I think, since the 60s. Yeah, recall since the 60s. The community itself has been around since the 1930s. So been around a long time. And as they're growing, infrastructure, things like that, you have to make the necessary upgrades to meet the demands of now having a more active community, not only within your walls, but they serve an international community. Sure. So you're talking about visitors coming from all over the world, visiting your mosque. And that's, and being inspired by the ad that I saw on Facebook that they were doing this renovation. But what also caught my eye was, I think maybe about 1 or 2 negative comments on just because it was a mosque and it was the Muslim community. You always have to have one person, unfortunately, make a negative comment. So this was an opportunity for me to do a story on the imam and what is it like to be an imam at a historical mosque, and for someone who's traveling internationally, how do you balance everything that you do? You're serving the community, and you also have to make sure you take time out for yourself. So it was kind of a mix of different things. You're addressing this situation that's, happening with you as an imam. You have all this stuff that's going on in your community. And then, like a lot of individuals who are doing clergy work, you have to really be mindful about your self-care. Sure. So, all these different dynamics are going on during the discussion. And I think about that often, about clergy and how they have to be mindful of their emotional and mental health, because they're doing so much and not being aware that you have to take care of yourself and not get into situations that could put you in a depressed state or burnout. So just listening to just all the different things that he was doing, it was just amazing. And I was like, this gives people really a front row view to hear and see what this gentleman is doing. I mean, Imam Sharif is doing amazing work. So it was an honor for me to interview him. I said, first you have to forgive me for not having an imam on the show for so long. But it was great, having the opportunity to talk with him in that space.
And also that you're mentioning things that we have in common. And if you are a leader of a faith community, regardless of what that community is, you have so many things to juggle, right? Including taking care of yourself. And also, it's interesting that you mentioned the renovation, because that's also something that, even though you don't get prepared for it in whether it's seminary or whatever the training, the area of training is, that tends to not be something that you learn about, but you end up having to make really critical decisions, right? And, exactly. And work with people. And so very interesting. Yeah. And you also have another interfaith gathering called Pub Theology, right? Could you share with us something about that?
Sure. Pub Theology, originally I started getting involved with that with a couple of ministers that I know that put together a Pub Theology gathering a few years ago in D.C., where everyone would just get together and there would be structured questions that are asked during the evening based on a particular topic, and at the same time we are enjoying food and beverages at a local restaurant or pub. So that was going on for a while, and the gentleman Brian, who also wrote a book on pub theology, he ended up moving out of the area, so it kind of just transitioned, kind of phased out in a sense. So there wasn't anything happening locally with that group. So over maybe the next few years, I had started asking other people that I knew in the faith-based space that has a pretty I'd say, pretty strong following of people who are engaged in their work. And I was asking them, I said, would you be interested in doing the pup theology? And I said, I could help coordinate things with you. And of course, everyone's like the usual, I'm busy. They don't have the time, or I wish I can do it, but I can't. So just with my desire over time, just to say, you know what, I'll just start one. I said I pretty much have a, base of my own and my own connections with people in the community. And I thought I had to be clergy to do that. No offense to those who are training for that. But at the time I was like, I need to be clergy. But I was like, no, you're a host. Right. You know people. You can always bring people who are clergy to a pup theology gathering, and you can work with them and have them come as your guests. So any of those particular type of questions come up regarding a certain faith tradition that they're from, they can provide some insight. And that has been successful. I've been doing that since January. Oh, wow, almost a year now. So coming up on a year, we started on the Martin Luther King weekend, which I felt that was appropriate to do that on Martin Luther King Day. And just contacted some people and say, hey, let's test this out and get a feel for it. And then we were trying to just configure which days would be best. And when you're dealing pretty much with interfaith gatherings, you got to be mindful of everybody's religious observances. Right. So we were looking at the days that had the least observances, and those days were Tuesdays and Thursdays. So what we ended up deciding to do was to schedule it on the third Tuesday in the month. So we know to be able to attract people from different faiths to come. So once a month we do that. I have the similar setup, the questions, and I'm very mindful of making sure the questions come from a various array of perspectives or religious beliefs.
Good, yeah. And
it really, I learned doing that the pup theology gatherings kind of served as a home for what I call spiritual refugees. So those are people who are no longer affiliated with the religion of their, I like to say, religion of their youth or their upbringing, and they're like simply just seeking out other avenues where they can learn more about various traditions of faith, but they're also looking for a safe space and where you can be open and discuss these things. And I think from my experience meeting people who come from that place in their lives, that pup theology provided a space for that. So,
well, it's neutral, right? It's because you're not in an official house of worship, and if you're, especially if you have a lot of questions, or maybe if you've had some difficult experiences in the past, it is a more neutral.
It's more neutral. Yeah, so people see it from that perspective. So I know there's like other pup gatherings like Theology on Tap and Core Theology, but what I call my pup gathering is called Interfaith Connections at the Pub, because I want to keep that interfaith perspective there. But it's pretty much a pup theology setup, and people get there, and I think it's a really good way not only to connect with people, but it is a good place to ask those questions. And the insight and perspectives during these discussions have been really great. So I tell people I have not done a pup theology where it was just like, oh my God, no. You always are learning something new, and I think that helps. And when you have good food and beer, that helps as well. And I always remind people that we have non-alcoholic beverages. I'm like, I don't want people to feel that you can't be there because there's alcohol there. We're very mindful of that, because we know by preference or by their faith practices, some people just don't drink. But I tell people, with anything, just come there and check it out and meet the people there, because you never know what you'll find out until you try it.
And that can also be one of these examples of things that we might not expect about someone else.
Exactly.
It's like, and you also have a lovely tagline for this too. I was reading, you call it different brews, different views.
It's a cool title. I can't take credit for it. That's Brian. Again, that's Brian's. He let us use the graphics for that. But I think the way they have it structured is like on point. So yeah, it's been a really good experience, and it taught me, even as a leader, there are times you just have to step up to what you're called to do, because it's like it was in my spirit so long to recreate that pup theology experience here locally. So I tested out different pup theology locations, and the one in Fairfax, Virginia, seems to be what continues to be actually the strongest location. I know people have asked about having them in other parts of the DC area, so now my pitch to them is the same process I went through. If you want to have it there, let's coordinate it together, and we can make it happen in your community.
Very good. So you have these interfaith conversations happening in these two different settings, these sort of specific interviews, and then you also have the group setting, this informal, more pub setting, and that's happening parallel to each other. Well, now I'm going to ask you about a third interfaith organization, something that's also a very important part of your life. You're in the Washington, D.C. chapter of Religion Communicators Council, and you are the national president of the organization. Could you tell us a little bit about the organization, and in particular, we have something very important coming up in March of 2020.
For those of you who are not familiar with the Religion Communicators Council, I tell people pretty much it's the interfaith organization of communication, marketing professionals, those who are maybe also in mass media doing the work I do in television, radio, podcasting, blogging. So we're a mix of different communication professionals. And the organization has been around, as you mentioned, since 1929. We just celebrated our 90th anniversary, which is something we're very proud about. And over the years, the organization has been pretty much a networking and resource hub for those who are religion communicators who are looking for support in their professional growth. And also we're known for a lot of our networking opportunities locally. One of the things I enjoy the most about the Religion Communicators Council, being a media person at the time, was that I really didn't have a network of faith-based media professionals or religion communicators that I can go to have those questions about the work I'm doing in this industry. I'm usually one of the few people here in DC that has the media background, so when other religious organizations or interfaith organizations come to me, it's always that media. They always have media questions they want to ask me. But at the time before joining, I didn't have that community. So it was just really simple. One day I just did a search on Google as I was building up this show a couple of years ago prior to joining RCC, and I said I got to find a community for me, for what I'm doing, and I found the website and got in contact immediately with the executive director, and eventually became a member. And I think it's one of the best resources I've experienced in my life. So it's very exciting to, be involved. And then as life has it, I would never, if you asked me when I first joined that I would be the national president, I would have looked at you like, no way. It's like, what? I can't see, it didn't even come to me. But I think in everything else where you're doing in the faith-based space, when you're called to the work, you just go. Spirit calls you and you go. So that's pretty much my journey with RCC, and the individuals who are members are really great colleagues. I tell people you will not find a better organization out here doing what we do.
And have you found even though everyone is in a different setting and a different role, but there are so many common experiences as far as, for example, working with nonprofit budgets and dealing with, you had mentioned right at the beginning of our conversation, people not being educated about other faiths. And one of the priorities of RCC is increasing religious literacy, just in general in the population. And it's also really great that these colleagues kind of understand that of each other, because when there are misunderstandings about one faith, it affects the misunderstandings we have about all faiths, right? And that's also a very much a shared priority, and something that's really that's just super important to RCC.
Yeah, I agree. And that is one of our key focuses, which was another reason why I was drawn to the organization, because we have the resources, particularly the members who can also speak on behalf of those traditions, that people can contact and find out more about a particular faith. Or we have, like I said again, the resources available that professionals can use to engage in their work and make it better, or particularly with media or religion reporters who are covering news. In a lot of cases, what we're learning now, as the news industry is decreasing, a lot of reporters that would be on a set beat. Like once upon a time, you would have like religion reporters.
Absolutely.
And now that religion reporter may be also covering other beats for that news organization. So for those individuals who are not familiar with the various faith traditions, that's when we would say to them, please check out RCC's website to get information on a particular faith you're covering. So make sure you have accurate information that you're giving out to the public.
And also just who to call.
Right.
And that will lead to the next person to call, because then just having better sources, of course, is going to really help your reporting. So every year there is a conference for RCC, but every 10 years there is a special, more sort of cross-organizational, bigger convention, and that's coming up this March, and the theme this year for 2020 is communicating faith in the public square, which is super appropriate.
Yes.
Would you like to say something about, because you're also, in this, still in the hot phase of planning and organizing, and would you like to describe some of what the convention is looking like?
Sure. And this is the Religion Communication Congress. As you mentioned, we do it every year. This year would be in Crystal City, Virginia, which is right outside of Washington, D.C. And the focus this year, as you mentioned, about communicating in the public square. And what's happening is with that particular convention is you're going to be able to be in an environment with, this goes beyond just an annual Religion Communicator Council's annual convention where you have the majority of the members,
right,
to having people or professionals from the various traditions that's out there coming in to give their perspective. So it's not just simply RCC members. You're going to have people from various religion communication organizations, like the United Methodists will be there. We also have some other Christian publications that will be there. We would like to make sure we have more of the dharmic faiths represented, which is the Buddhist, Hinduism,
and humanism too,
and humanism as
yeah.
well. So we're really big on making sure we have a diverse audience. But you will, if for those who are interested in attending, there will be a mesh of workshops and plenary sessions that people can participate in and find out what's happening in the religion communications world. It does attract people from various countries, from my understanding, from past gatherings, which is also makes it appealing being here in DC to get people to come. And I know this year we're doing kind of we're going to have a faith-based advocacy component. We're doing the Saturday of the conference to show what communicators are doing in the faith-based space to advocate their issues. We're also going to have one workshop that's going to focus on pop culture and theology. And,
nice.
There'll be a young woman there by the name of Reverend Shana Watson will be doing that. She does a TheoCon.
Oh, right.
As you know, we've been to that, the Theology Comic Con, and that's hoping also to kind of diversify, not only doing something from the faith-based advocacy perspective, but you have like kind of the arts and entertainment perspectives as well. So you're going to have a diverse range of topics going on during the Congress, and we do encourage people, if you are going to be in the area or would like to check it out, to learn more about doing that.
Yes, and the keynote speakers and workshops and much more extensive information is listed. So as a kind of a final question, I'm just curious about in all these conversations that you've had over the past several years, do you have an example of something that has really struck you in a surprising way, whether negative or positive, something that is just really like you really did not expect?
In my years of doing this work overall, well, let's see, I would say 2015, going to the Parliament of the World's Religions when that took place in Salt Lake City. I originally didn't even think I would be able to go. Didn't have the budget, didn't know how I was going to fly there, didn't know how I was going to pay for the hotel, none of that. And I had to wait to get media credentials.
Oh, right.
So I couldn't book any kind of travel or anything because I didn't know I was going to be approved. So, you go through that waiting process. It's like, I'm still waiting. And like maybe 1 week before the event I got approved to go. So then I was scrambling. I'm like, how am I going to get the money to go? And I just put it out there. I said, hey, I want to go to this conference that's happening, or the summit that's happening out in Salt Lake City. It's also going to happen the week of my birthday. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to get there. I know I need to be there this year. And I think just when people heard me making that call that I wanted to go, people started giving me money, like assistance to travel there. Wow. So I had to do all that in 1 week and get ready to travel there so I can just get some footage and things. And I want to do a show about it upon my return back. So that was one of those whoa kind of things that surprised me. I'm trying to think from the negative side. It's pretty much not anything super negative, but I do have people that know me, that know that I do this work, and they still will say something negative about a particular faith. And I look at them all the time. I'm like, you know the type of work that I do, and you're not really being mindful about the comments you're making. And I'm like, yes, we are cool, or we're friends or colleagues or whatever, but this is what I'm called to do. So I'm going to correct you just as I would correct anyone else. So I'm still amazed that people still come to me and have like those negative views about a particular faith. And I'm just like, you can't, maybe you may have not had the best experience with a particular person from that tradition, but you can't blame everybody from that tradition or have a negative view on it because of your experience with one person. So it's always kind of like those kind of situations I always have to kind of remind and correct people about. I'm like, no, you can't do things like that, But
I think these individual conversations, though, is something that's kind of on all of us to be mindful of that, because it's whether we're catching ourselves or whether we're taking those opportunities when someone is talking to us or they're really going off on, like, especially a faith group that they do not know much about, like they might have had one encounter and then they start generalizing. These are opportunities to try and diffuse that and jump in and not let it go. Right. Yeah. So, well, you've been listening to The Seminary Explores. I'm Katie Giebenheim. My guest has been Jackie Fuller, executive producer and host of Interfaith Connections and president of Religion Communicators Council. Learn more about the RCC and the RCC Congress 2020 at www.religioncommunicators.org, and learn about Interfaith Connections at interfaithconnections.squarespace.com. Jackie, thank you so much for your time.
Sure, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me on the program.
You have been listening to The Seminary Explores, a production of United Lutheran Seminary with campuses in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We invite you to visit our website at unitedlutheranseminary.edu. Opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of United Lutheran Seminary or the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America.